Hi, my name is Vernon Wells, and I'm doing an interview regarding Nam Angels.
To these people, I am a living god.
How did I first start working with Sirio Santiago? I was asked to do Nam Angels, and I met Sirio Santiago, and we got along extremely well. But at the original time I was asked to do it, they really didn't know where to put me or what to have me do. So they actually had me reading with all the actors and actresses that were coming in to do the roles. And so I became part of the casting process. I was just the actor that read with the other actors that came in. And then Sirio liked what I did, and they came up with the role that I did, which was the German ex paratrooper, not nice man, SS, who becomes the whole basis of the film. So it was an interesting thing to get involved in, but I believe my manager at that stage asked for a 3-picture deal if I was going to do it, and which was something that the production company never did, ever. But they, strangely enough, gave me a 3-picture deal, and I guess nobody bothered to find out exactly what that meant to them. What it turned out to be was I did Nam Angels, and while I was in Manila, I did a day in another movie, and when that was finished, I did half a day in another movie, and that was my 3-picture deal. And I thought that was brilliant, that I'd been basically shown what this business is really quickly. That, yeah, I didn't mind. I had a lot of fun. Manila was somewhere I enjoyed being. I like being in the Philippines. Sirio became a very good friend. I loved working with him. He was extremely nice. I remember that I did the second film I did for him they were doing it in Tagalog and in English, so they were teaching me to speak Tagalog parrot fashion that I didn't understand.
Mag-aral ka muna ng Tagalog para magkaintindihan tayo.
Tagalog, but I would understand what I was saying simply because it was the same thing as I said in English. So they would teach me to do it word by word, and I would do the Tagalog, which was kind of fun because they wanted that for the audience, because their films make much more money over in that area in the Philippines with that audience. So having me speak Tagalog was a big deal for them. They could use it over there, then the English version they would use for the rest of the world. And they also there was a scene in it where I was doing some things to this young lady in bed. She was in bed, I wasn't. I was doing it to her while she was in bed. And they couldn't have a white woman topless, so they actually had a Manilan girl stand in for the white girl in that scene, and she was topless. It was kind of an interesting way that they did things, but I had so much fun. As I said, Sirio was so great to work with that he, after we finished that film, it was a long, hard shoot. He sent me to Hong Kong for a 4 days holiday, which was really cool. Doing Nam Angels, I had a lot of fun. There was motorbikes and gunshots and people. The only problem we had was where we were shooting, and it wasn't a problem. I mean, when I say problem, it was just interesting, was that they actually had terrorists in the hills at that stage. And so every morning the army would go out and do a sweep of where we were shooting to make sure that there was nobody that was actually going to shoot back at us with live bullets while we were using blanks. So it was an interesting foray into the culture over there. But the film itself, Nam Angels, was great because we went to all the wonderful locations. You know, we were shooting in Manila or outside Manila at the American naval base, which at that stage had just been declared Manilan, but it was still, all the stuff was there, so they were using that as a set. We went across to Mindanao, which was just amazing, running around that. I got lost at one stage going in and out of all the old tunnels and all the things that have been set up over there, the bunkers and things. I have this really bad habit of wandering off and wanting to explore shit. So I was running around, going into places, and I got lost in one of the tunnels and had no idea where I was. And fortunately, somebody had figured I would do something stupid like that, so they came looking for me and found where I was and got me out. I think my only problem with working on those films was at times the food, because they eat food that we don't. Some of their food is a little strange to us, like fish heads and things like that. Just a little strange. But apart from that, the people themselves are wonderful. The film was a lot of fun to do. I enjoyed it immensely. I actually survived it without getting hurt, which was unusual for me in an action movie. I tend to get myself in places and positions and get hurt somewhere doing something stupid. But it was kind of a guerrilla warfare doing the film, because they would, if they saw a location they wanted to use, they would just stop and we would go shoot there. So it was kind of interesting how they put that together. I remember at one stage I was there, it wasn't for that particular film, but they shot a scene in a bus, basically in peak hour traffic, and blew the top off the bus. Just because they got all this wonderful reaction of all the people. Circle of Fear, yeah. And I was actually quite stunned when he passed away, because I was contacting him about something and I couldn't get hold of him, and I rang a friend of mine over here and I said, I'm trying to contact Sirio, and I don't seem to have his number anymore. And they said, no, because he passed away about 6 months ago. It was like, whoa, I didn't even know that. But I mean, he seemed to get out of the film business there towards the end, because he was more into the other side of it in Manila. He was in charge of the whole film industry, of bringing films and things into Manila. So I think he got out of directing and being associated in that side of it. But it was an interesting experience. It's an interesting culture. The movie I enjoyed. I think the movie was a lot of fun, and I got to play a German with blonde hair and blue eyes. The end sequence was kind of fun because they built the bridge that we worked on in the end sequence of the film, but they built it out of mahogany, and they were going to blow it up, and they couldn't because it wouldn't come down. It was so well built. It was just this great structure that they built. It wasn't, I believe at the time, I could be wrong, that it didn't go all the way across the river. It went like halfway, because that's all they needed for the end sequence. I think the scariest part for me was jumping when they hung me. They actually had me jump, and they had the rig up my back. But regardless, you still have a rope around your neck, and it is attached to the rope that's attached to the rig. And if anything goes wrong, guess what? You have a broken neck. So that was a little freaky. That just doing that is just a little freaky, jumping and just having that sudden clunk, and just hoping to God that everything held. But that was sort of fun. Fighting in a rice paddy with a water buffalo in the mud up to our elbows was kind of fun. That was one of those scenes that I was talking about when we were driving. We were driving out through the country, and there was a rice paddy and a water buffalo in it, and Sirio thought that would make a great place to shoot part of the sequence of the end of the film where I'm fighting. What was our hero's name in that, the actor? Yeah, me and Brad up to our elbows in mud fighting over the top of a water buffalo who was not happy. And it was kind of fun. The way that they had a great way of cleaning us up. They just turned the hose on and sprayed us down. It was kind of definitely wasn't the way they do it here. Brad was great to work with. He was a very good guitar player and singer. Every night when we were coming back from Mindanao on the boat, when we were filming over there, he would play the guitar and sing away for everybody. We'd have sing-alongs all the way back. He was kind of cool. I don't know what he's doing anymore. I saw him turn up in a couple of other films, and then he just vanished. Yeah, he was a cowboy. He always wore the buckle. He was the champion. A bronco rider or something, or bull rider, one or the other. something that I wouldn't do in my wildest dreams. But no, he was great. He was really easy to work. Oh, the whole team was really, all of the guys that they had, the Americans, are really fun to work with. And the Filipinos, as always, in every film I did over there, the crew and cast and people were really, really nice. Both of them. Rick was the ultimate character, number one, and he was really nice guy to work with. I mean, we kept in touch. It's always funny that when you do a film, everybody says the same thing at the end of filming. We'll have to have lunch, we'll have to have coffee, we'll have to keep in touch. Nobody ever does, because you sort of drift off into another film, you do other things, and it's very difficult to keep, as you've noticed. Just me remembering all the people I've worked with. God, I've done 218 films. So just trying to remember who I've worked with is really difficult. Some relationships linger, some don't. Rick, I used to keep in touch with. And then it just slowly, over the years, it just drifted away, and there was less and less contact. But he was a really cool dude. I liked him a lot. He was like the ultimate bikie, and just sweet. And I was shocked when you told me that he had passed away. It was like, whoa, It's kind of a bit of a, it makes us realize that how tenuous our life is when the people around you, die. It was like a couple of weeks ago when Richard Hatch passed away. My wife was totally shocked her so bad, because Richard was a very good friend. And she had seen him not long before, and they'd been dancing at a party at another friend's house. And so she was just stunned. And that's the point, is that, you work with people, and we all do the same thing. We lose contact, we go on, we do other things, and then somebody will say, oh, yeah, so-and-so, he's not here anymore. And it's a real shock to just realize that they're gone. That was their high-speed camera, and it weighed about 140 pounds, and it was the biggest thing you've ever seen in your life. It had everything big on it. It was supposed to be soundproof, but you could hear everything coming through it. It was just, you'd just go insane if you were doing a thing like this. All you'd hear was, and you'd like, seriously, that's soundproof? Jesus. And a little tiny guy used to carry it around, who was Sirio's assistant, and seriously, this guy was 5'4", and this camera was 5'4". It was huge, and he would get under it and then pick it up and walk it wherever it had to go. A couple of times I actually tried to help him, and he got very upset with me, because she felt sorry for him. He was so small, and this camera was so bloody big and heavy, into the 90s with him. And he still had it, and still lugged it around when we were doing anything that was high speed. But I actually started, as what people forget, is that I actually started in this business as a director-producer. I didn't start as an actor. I actually was in bands, rock and roll, big-time rock and roll bands and things. I had no interest in acting in any way, shape or form. It did not intrigue me. I was in bands because my mother was a very successful songwriter, country and western. So I followed in her footsteps. I was the only one in the family that had any inclination to do it. And I got into acting by accident, as they like to say. I was involved in a very severe car accident, couldn't work with the bands. And while I was recuperating, our manager got me into some fashion work, being a model, which within probably 3 days drove me insane. It was so bloody plastic, I just couldn't handle it. But that same agency started getting me to do extra work in film, in television shows, which I didn't mind doing because I was getting paid and I didn't have to share it with the band while I was recovering. It was kind of fun. But then it got to a point where directors would see me and they would go, Vernon, come here, and they would give me lines to do, which I hated. I didn't want to be an actor, and doing lines was like, you're kidding. But I loved being behind the camera, So I would always gravitate to the crew. I would always be with the crew, talking to the crew, trying to find out why they did what they did. And it really, really interested me. And I did a lot of commercials, and I worked with one particular director a lot. And he actually just said to me one day, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I was being smart. I said, "I want to be you." And he said, "You think you could be me?" And I went, "I could be better." And I thought, dumb, shouldn't have said that. And probably about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from the company, and they hired me as his assistant, which meant I started at the ground floor and worked my way up, doing everything that you do, learning every department, learning about every conceivable thing, and working with it until he started having me produce commercials. Then he just turned commercials over to me to direct, and I started directing. And then I went from commercials, I would direct trade films, and then I started directing films that had people in them, so it was basically a mini movie. And from that I started directing the odd little film. And that's where I thought I would be for the rest of my life, just playing around and having a lot of fun. And somebody named George Miller decided that I should do Road Warrior, and that fucked up my whole life. It changed from where I thought I should be to where I am. Wes was never supposed to be gay. There's a scene that's not in the film, or there's quite a few scenes that are not in the film, but the scene that's not in the film is at the start of the film. You see all the marauders attacking this farmhouse and dragging the people out and killing them and raping the women, sort of thing. And I ride up, and this young kid is running out, and one of the bikers grabs him by the hair. He's got blonde hair, and he's going to cut his throat. And the kid is so traumatized by the whole thing, he can't talk. And I stop him, and I put him on the back of my bike, and then it cuts to that opening sequence, and he's now grown. And everybody said, because there is no way to make that work, that it was gay. It was my boyfriend, because of the reaction when he gets killed. And it wasn't. It was, he became my surrogate son. He was like the one thing that I had that was not like that. So the whole point of it was within this barren landscape, he was the one beautiful thing. And that had nothing to do with being gay or anything else. And they also thought it was gay because Siskel and Ebert said, "We now have a gay actor."
If I have a real objection to the film, it's the character of the villain who we saw there in the last scene, who is, I think, almost unmistakably presented as sort of a leather sort of homosexual guy.
Absolutely, no question. As if Arnold Schwarzenegger had to prove that he was a man by beating him, and there's something a little weird going on there.
And Siskel and Ebert said, when I did Commando, why would they put the same gay actor into two movies? And I can guarantee that Bennett was not gay in Commando, just because of the relationship that they had, where Bennett wanted to be Arnold because he thought he was better. It's all perception. People just take it and go, "Oh, well, of course he must be gay because they're doing that." When in reality, it's got nothing to do with that. It's this whole different thing of where the psychology of it is, especially in Commando, is that I wanted to be better than he was and thought I was. And there had to be that fight at the end to prove which one of us was the better. In Road Warrior, at no time did I ever consider the character gay. And George never said he was gay. Look, I have read so much shit about my character. There's every other day there's a thing comes out that says 25 things you never knew about Road Warrior. Half of them are about my character, and I'm like, wow. I must have been such a pathetic actor if I didn't know any of those things. I knew that I wouldn't do Fury Road a long, long time ago. When they first wrote it, I mean, Fury Road was on the thing for like 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, it's been in development.
Probably longer than that.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was in London doing a autograph show. A guy walked up to me and he said, "Call off your rabble." And I went, "I'm sorry?" And he said, "I'm kidding." And he said, "My name's so-and-so, and I've been working with George Miller and the other writer for Terry Hayes for the last year and a half, writing the new Mad Max." And he said, there's this whole thing in the internet since they found out it was happening that they want you in it. And it's not going to happen, you know. And I said, number one, I never knew there was one being made. Number two, I would not expect to be in it. And he said, yeah. He said, but there's this whole thing. And I was talking to George. And George I always say that George Miller created my career. He always says that I created my own career. He gave me something to do, and I was able to make something bigger than it was. Whichever way it goes, it doesn't matter. But the point was that the character became bigger than life. The character became just so ingrained on people's minds that he could not put me in that movie. If he did, in any role, even with, as he said, even with a fucking bag over your head, all you have to do is open your mouth and say 2 words and everybody would go, Wes. So he can't do it. I'm trapped in the fact that Wes just became too well known. And then everybody says to me, yes, but he used Hugh Key Burns. Yes, but nobody knows who Hugh Key Burns is. You know, it was that difference. If you talk about Road Warrior, who's the first character everybody mentions? Wes.
Life's always been an adventure.